Welcome everybody out to podcast number 1222. Today we have Andy Wyman with us, and he's going to be talking to us about how we can really set our projects up for success and really provide some insights to contractors. There's going to be some discussions about the owner's perspective. There's going to be some legal topics. I think you're going to have a good time, so stay with us. Welcome everyone. I hope you're doing well. And Andy, I saved this for when we were recording. How are you today, my brother?
I'm doing well, Jason. Thanks. How about yourself?
Doing really good. I'm super stoked to be back at work, and I had a great Thanksgiving week. Our company took the whole week off. Did you have a good Thanksgiving or holidays?
Nice. Yeah, we did. We hosted a bit, and then I have a business acquaintance who does a Friendsgiving the day after, so we got to bring our leftovers and have other people's leftovers. It was good.
That's awesome. Before I want to do two things here, so I'm excited to get in this with you, and we can be 8 minutes, 18 minutes, or 30, whatever works for you for your topic and what you're really passionate about. But there's two things. Number one, I want to get where can people contact you if they ever want to reach out directly, and then second, once we're done with that, I'll ask you for an introduction because you can do it best. I want people to know a bit about your background so they can connect with you. So first off, how can people connect with you if they ever want to hear more, talk more, or connect?
Yeah, great. I appreciate that. So, my phone number here at our office in Boca Raton, Florida is 561-361-8700. My email is Andy at Wyman Legal Solutions.com. Either of those methods work absolutely great.
Wonderful. That's great. All right. Well, let's get some connection to our listeners. Let's get some background. Tell us about yourself. Let's do an introduction.
Sure. No problem. Thanks. So, my name is Andy Wyman, and I own a law firm, a construction law firm in Boca Raton, Florida, called Wyman Legal Solutions. And at our firm, we represent owners and we represent contractors in construction disputes, but also before projects take place and while projects are ongoing to give everybody the best chance for their project to be a success. And so, that's I've been a lawyer now here in Florida for about 24 years and about 27 years altogether, including in New York and New Jersey.
Oh, wonderful. Okay. Well, then let's get right into it. And one of the things, um, just so everybody knows on the podcast, the listeners, um, Andy is going to use residential and bring it down to kind of a more personal level so the content can be shared a little bit better. But he is talking about both commercial and residential construction. Um, and so he'll be using residential examples. But let me shoot over this question. And by the way, you come well prepared. You already have your bullet list of things that you want to talk about. But let's head into this topic of a successful project. And for me personally, I'm really interested in that perspective from your experience. So let's dive right in and get started. What's the biggest part of this? How do you want to kick this off?
Yeah, sure. So, I think what might be helpful to the contractors is to maybe get some perspective of from the owner's perspective of how they, enter into these projects, what their expectations are, and really what their knowledge base is, right? So from my experience, again, having done a lot of this work representing owners in a residential context, the owners don't know a lot. I mean, they're very uninformed. They really don't know how this process is supposed to work. Whereas, a contractor certainly who does this day in and day out really is in a terrific spot and has a great opportunity to really establish trust and rapport with these owners right out of the gate. I mean, if you think about it, and this happens here with my law firm too, right? Someone will call the law firm and maybe they don't use legal services. They never had to hire a lawyer before. They don't know what to expect. And
Yeah.
so I feel like it's our job when they call to be the tour guide and make them understand, okay, now that you've contacted us, here's what the process is going to look like. First, you're going to speak with this person. It's going to take some information. Then you're going to get set up to an appointment with the lawyer. And you let them know what to expect, and it demystifies the process and puts the client at ease. Similarly, I think contractors are in that exact position to establish their credibility and trust with a an owner who may not know what to expect and go through this this process like the
Ah,
contractors know it so well. So I think that's a critical immediate opportunity for contractors to establish themselves as the contractor that should be hired for the job.
can I repeat back what I just heard and
Sure.
add anything that you might think that I'm missing? So what I'm hearing is don't assume that you're working with an experienced client. This might be, even if it's a large commercial building or it's a residence, it might be their only project they're doing. They are not doing this day in and day out like you. And we can literally help them, train them, onboard them, help them to feel safe throughout, and be an advocate. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think I think contractors, by and large, are very good people. They understand the construction and that end of it, and sometimes the what might be missing a little bit because is kind of the communication aspect of things, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's a great opportunity, like I said, to be able to communicate these things to the owner right off the bat. But and the communication, honestly, is at the heart of every single dispute that I've had to deal with, commercial,
Wow.
residential, when it comes to these projects, because it's there's some unmet expectation or unaddressed expectation between the owner and the contractor. It works both ways, and at the heart of that is some kind of miscommunication. So it's super important.
That's super interesting because in our books at Elevate and throughout the industry, and especially in the integrated project delivery framework, they talk about doing conditions of satisfaction early on, and kind of creating this project charter, like what would be success, what's important to the owner. And I also like what you well, and I'll add to this as well, is that the owner doesn't just need to align with the contractor on expectations, but you brought up a really key point, which is the process. They could find themselves really, really lost. Heck, even construction professionals find themselves lost in the entitlements phase, pre-construction, the construct. You're right. Like it's just it's a big world. So the one thing, and I've never heard this before, which I think is fantastic, is and I'm picturing in have you ever been in an airport where up there above the boarding gate it has the little dots and it says plane arriving, plane deboarding, plane cleaning, plane, ready for board, right?
Yeah,
You feel so comforted. You're like you could deal with the delay at least as long as you know what the heck is going on, right? So like if we
right.
all had the communication like an airport where it said exactly where you are in the process, that would be huge. So that's a huge takeaway already.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. And go ahead.
Good.
No, what I was going to say was that the it's I think when it comes to, let's say, bidding the job or in an effort to try to get the job, I mean, that's when you need to be really at your best, right? I think how you handle that process as a contractor is going to tell the owner a lot about how it's going to be what it's going to be like to work with you during the course of the project. So I think, again, communication, delivering something, a deliverable when you promise it's going to be delivered. If you promise to get someone a bid or a response to, a request for information by Friday, and you're not, for whatever reason, you're not going to make that deadline. Pick up the phone and call them and tell them and say, "Hey, I apologize, but it's going to come Monday instead." Don't let Friday come and go, and now it's Monday or Tuesday of the next week, and the owner is like, "Where is this? Where is this information you promised?" So, I mean, that to me, how you do anything is how you do everything, and then that would be a red flag to me as an owner that I can't really trust what you're telling me right out of the gate, and that's a big problem.
That is, it's interesting how
Mm.
I don't want to get stuck on this too long, but let me say one
Yeah.
more thing. It's like it's so
Mm.
funny how it's similar to a marriage that is. It's like marriages go bad with bad communication. And if you can just get connected, look each other in the eye, hold hands, be present, it'll a lot of the problems, which then leads to a contractual divorce, right? So,
Right.
good communication. You've listed on here proactive legal strategies. I like that. I'm
Mm.
assuming that's one in that category. Where would you take us next for being proactive? What other advice would you give?
Yeah. So I think in being proactive, as far as a contractor is concerned, I mean, you need to certainly every state is a little bit different, but I'm kind of thinking forward to some issues where contractors have sometimes have issues getting paid on jobs, right? And especially subcontractors, that could be a difficult situation when and it all kind of starts being proactive. Really starts with making sure that you have a good contract in place that can protect you. Now, I understand that if you're a subcontractor on commercial jobs, sometimes the terms of those contracts that are presented to you by the general contractor might be a little onerous. It might be and a lot of it depends on your relative bargaining position, right? I mean, if this is a contractor you're really looking to try to develop a relationship as a sub, you might decide you're willing to live with certain things in the contract that might be a little dangerous for you, or when it comes to how ensuring you're going to get paid for the work that you're doing and how timely that payment will take place. But having a contract in place that is fair, that helps that is in service of the project, that is that is can set up the project as a win-win for everybody. As long as you do your work, you'll get paid, and as long as you follow through and do what is promised, the owner or the GC should be happy. I
Yep.
mean, these are the kinds of things that you could do to be proactive. Don't certainly it's dangerous to just sign anything put under your nose without really understanding what it is that you're agreeing to. So being proactive, getting legal advice up front, help at least getting understanding what you're signing, and then maybe an opportunity to get some language written into a contract that could protect you better.
I like that. And if you don't mind, I hope I'm not getting off the outline too much, but
Mm,
I've got a question.
yeah.
So I'm writing a book right now about CPM, and by the way, just to be clear, I'm anti CPM. I would love to have better scheduling systems into the contracting world. We don't have to discuss that on this podcast, but
Okay.
most of the things that I'm seeing all around from a contracting standpoint is, hey, we could have had a conversation, we could have partnered, but we didn't. So let's go ahead and beef up our contracts. That
Hmm.
we could have partnered, we didn't. Let's beef up our contracts. We could, like, over and over and over and over, to where now we have, like, literally, I have on my shelf books that are like a couple feet tall that go into all of the different little nuances. And when I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking like this could have been a conversation in a partnering environment. And then I think somebody hearing me say that would be like, Jason, this is not a handshake world anymore. You live in the United States. You've got to have a good contract. And I believe that. So here's my question. Well, let me make a statement, then let me ask a question. To me, it feels to me like a good contract is fair and really helps sets expectations. I could be wrong about that, but let me ask you this question. How can we, or what approach or mindset can we take to where we have the contracts that will set us up for good partnering and set the expectations, but not naturally tend towards contention, not naturally tend towards siloing, not tend towards a lawsuit, right? Like,
Right.
I hear
Right.
people all the time say, hey, we need to have better partnerships, but how does that actually get to become rubber meets the road in the contract, in the agreement, in the deal? That's my question.
That Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. So, um, in my opinion, first and foremost, what the purpose of the contract is to help the project get administered efficiently and fairly to everybody, and so that if you're doing the job that's expected of you, then you get the result that is promised to you. So in that regard, and I think also from a 30,000 foot view, you know, these days labor is difficult for a lot of contractors, and having reliable subcontractors can be difficult for a lot of contractors. And so I think if you take an approach to the relationship, that you're building a relationship with somebody, and this is not just a transactional experience between the two of us, where we're going to have this one job,
Yep.
and and I want to have my terms in this contract so protective that you're not going to want to do business with me again, or I won't want to do business with you again. I mean, there's a lot of value in having a relationship with a subcontractor that you can do work with going forward, and you can rely upon and have job after job after job. It makes it easier for you as the contractor to bid your next job and the job after that with new owners because you've got some reliability, and it helps you, deliver a better work product in a faster period of time. But contracts are written for a reason, and it's in to address what might happen in the future
Yep.
and how that will be dealt with. The best scenario is you write a great thorough contract, you stick it in a drawer, and no one ever has to look at it again.
I like
But
that.
really, you do need to think ahead. Okay, what if there is a problem on this job, and how are we going to deal with that? What I think it's super important that, again, like communication at the beginning, when you hit that point of the process, having dispute resolution measures written into a contract that allow you to resolve issues on the ground,
Yes.
preferably as swiftly as possible, so you don't end up in arbitration or litigation down the line. So to me, having some initial decision maker that might, be able to offer a decision on a dispute or a claim right there on the ground, so the project keeps moving. To me, that's, you avoid all the bad blood and expense and delay of litigation, and hopefully, it just becomes a bump in the road, and you get past it, and you continue on together.
Okay, this is a fantastic podcast, and that was an amazing answer. I love what you said. I'm not trying to. Well, I am repeating it for the listeners, just so they heard it. You write an amazing, and what I'm hearing is fair contract. Hopefully, you don't have to right. We pull the inclusions and exclusions out into a folder so everybody's aware. But the actual contract, we don't have to use it because we have such a good relationship, which you're telling us, right, to really develop early on. The other one I love, and I don't know what the actual contract language looks like word for word, but to where you can make decisions, boots on the ground with the right people before it escalates. I love that.
And
We have and this was before. I hope this isn't offensive. This is before we met you, but we have a really neat contracts consultant who is an attorney. Um, and our direction to her was, and she's fantastic, was please give us the best subcontracts that are the fairest and take care of our trades, but also keep us safe in the most minimalistic and fair way you possibly can. And I hope that translates, but really it's fair. Hopefully we don't have to use it, but when we get to the point, we would make as many decisions, boots on the ground, as we possibly can. I've never heard that before, and I love it. So
yeah,
that
and I think for attorneys who have been through litigation with clients, and seeing what that really does, gives us a really good perspective on how to hopefully avoid the litigation in the future. And this is just one of those, sort of things.
I like that.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is a jam. This has already been like worth it times 10 for me. What are any other points that you really want to drive home, or anything that's on your heart and mind before you tell us it's time to wrap it up?
Yeah, sure. So, I think that a couple of other, we talked about how to be proactive when you're a contractor. One of the
Yep.
other things I really want these contractors to be thinking about, and again, every state's laws are a little different, has to do with the use of construction liens and notices to owner and things like that. Because at least here in Florida, the way it works, if you're a subcontractor and you hope to preserve your right to get paid on a job later with potentially recording a lien should you need to do that, you have to give a notice to the owner at the very beginning when you first come onto the project, within 45 days of starting the work. And at that point in time, things are generally good. And things, there's usually not a problem at the very beginning. The problems usually arise towards the end. So, but the law requires you as the sub to give that notice at a time where things are good. And a lot of subcontractors I speak to, they feel like that's an aggressive move. They feel like it's aggressive to send this notice to owner at the beginning of a job, when in fact it's just a good business, and it's a smart thing to do. And so, well, there, I'm concerned that, the owner might take this the wrong way, or the GC might take it the wrong way. Well, this is what the law requires. And so, later on, if there is a problem, you won't have the ability to put a lien on the project because you didn't take this step up front. And so I think the way I would look at it, if the owner and the GC should respect you more because you're giving them this notice up front of that, to the owner, that you're on the project and you may intend to lien you may lean later on, because it shows that you know what you're doing. It shows that you
Yeah.
operate your business the right way. So again, that's kind of part of the preparation, the forethought, if you will, of things that I think are necessary. And so, and ultimately, a lot of it is, professionalism. It's again, in some examples I'll give in the context of residential. I see, part of what we do is we try to help contractors who are newer or younger, or their businesses are newer, get a good footing, establish a good contract to use with clients, establish a good contract to use with subcontractors, how to kind of do things, the right way off the bat. And when I ask to see what contract they're using, invariably it's some combination, that something they Frankenstein together from things they found on the internet with what their former boss used to use. It's internally inconsistent, and but to me, it shows that you're not being a professional. I
Yeah.
mean, there's typos, there's, problems with the margins, there's, the paragraph numbers are all off, the different fonts. I mean, it looks literally like a high schooler put it together
Yeah.
before, high schooler before ChatGPT put it together.
Yeah.
And so but I think it speaks to how you do things. And so, so I think, again, having a professional contract, something that's drafted by a lawyer to protect you, but something that is presented professionally. And then, while you're doing the work, it's having the right supervision on site. It's
Yeah.
it's delegating that properly, not abdicating it. And I've learned this as being a business owner myself, where I've brought someone in to do something specifically, and I'm not really watching as closely as maybe I should. And then I come later to find out that it wasn't being done the way I thought it was being done, the way I taught them to do it. And now, but when I have to step back, I have to really take responsibility for that, right? That, hey, here I've abdicated it. I've just said, hey, go do this, and I didn't really delegate it properly to make sure that you're doing it the way it's supposed to be done, that the client's going to expect. And so, yeah, I think it's the same thing on a job. Like, I think there's a, it's, those tend to be the things that start the problems between an owner and a contractor on a job like this, on any type of job. So those are some super important things. And I think finally, I'll just mention, um, there's no reason these projects can't be win-win, right? So, to me, the owner and the contractor should both be able to come through a project as winners. There shouldn't have to be a winner and a loser. I think that there are some contractors think that way, though, and some owners think that way too. And it's just automatically it's a adversarial kind of relationship, or even a little different. The contractor, yes, they want it to be win-win, but if there's going to be a loser, it's going to be him, not me. I
Yeah.
mean, I think there's just sort of a right way to go into these things with the right, sort of cooperative, working together attitude. And again, it all kind of starts with some education to the owner, especially in a residential context. Education to the owner as to how they can be responsible themselves for what takes place on the project, and educating them to how to be a good consumer, and what to expect from you and your company as you work through a project together with them.
I love that. This has been fantastic, by the way. I'll give you the final word here in a second, but what I've heard
Sure.
is proactive relationships and communication is the key, right?
Yeah.
We definitely want to be covered, but we want to prevent ever needing to be. That's not the right way to say it, but we want to have a good enough relationship to where we don't have to use the legal means in case it goes wrong, right? And
Right.
the other one is um the being able to like really I love your advice, having really good subcontracts, really good contract with the owner that allows resolutions to happen as close to the work as possible before it escalates. And the other one is keeping really great documentation throughout and complying with the law so that you don't find yourself in that awkward position. So I love that. And there's two or three things that were really, really impactful for me, that make it very, very specific. And I appreciate you being on. So let me do this. I'll give you the final word on the podcast before we close it down. This has been great. What would be your,
Appreciate that. So,
sorry, I didn't cue this up. Whatever you want to say, but also like a challenge. What's the one thing?
a challenge. Okay. So,
Yeah.
um, I will say that, look, so I think, regardless of what state you live in and your practice is in, I think it would be a great idea, obviously, to make a good relationship with a lawyer, and also a good relationship with someone who can help you on the business end, maybe a business coach, someone like that. Because I mean, and some lawyers can serve as both, but I mean, lawyers tend to notoriously be bad business people. But hey, I work with business coaches that help me operationally, and they help me with the mindset, and they help me with the hiring and marketing and sales and all of the stuff that goes into running a business. And that's what you're doing. You're running a business, and maybe you got into this business because you were really good, with a hammer, and you did good work, and you did good work with it. But now this is a completely different skill set. So I'm going to, tell you that having the right people in your corner to help you, and not try to do it all yourself. Don't look at it like a cost, look at it like an investment into the
Yeah.
success of your business. I think, to me, that's kind of what I would challenge people with, right? Challenge your audience, and the listeners to, as owners, look at themselves as owners of a business, and invest properly into the right advice and guidance on all levels.
I like that. That's you'd be proud of us. We have a good construction lawyer, insurance broker that's just fantastic, contracts consultant, financial advisor, and accountant.
That's awesome. I am that you've checked all the good boxes. So, that's great. That's great.
That's awesome. Okay, well,
Yeah.
this has been absolutely fantastic, Andy. Thank you so much. And remember, well, actually, just one more time. I'm sorry to be annoying with this,
Yeah.
but one more time, your contact information so people can connect with you if they want.
Absolutely. So our number here in Boca Raton, Florida is 561-361-8700. My email address is Andy at Wyman. It's my last name, Wyman, Legal Solutions with an S at the end.com. And we do work here in Florida for contractors and for owners. We have a couple of programs where we help contractors with the exact kind of things we've been discussing, whether it's a smaller operation to help them get off the ground, or a larger operation that needs additional help with even employee issues and all those things that go along with the growing pains of running a successful business.
That's awesome. So if any of the listeners want to reach out, there's the information to connect with Andy. Andy, thank you for being on and for reaching out. This has been very insightful, and I hope everybody's enjoyed this podcast. On we go.